Okay, we are starting. Words do two major things. They provide food for the mind and create light for understanding and awareness. Hello, namaste, good afternoon. We are the team of Panel 4. Let me introduce my team members. Hi, I am Shrishti, your host. Monika is my co host, and other team members are Ria and Muskan. The topic of our panel is school as a tool for providing education to empower the poor. Together, we look forward to have this very exciting and enriching session with our truly exceptional guest speakers who will enlighten us through their thoughts on the topic. I am very grateful to everybody who has taken out their valuable time to be a part of this important panel discussion. I hope everyone who is with us today and is a part of our conversation comes off being inspired and more knowledgeable about this topic. I hand over it to Ria.
If you are not willing to learn, no one can help you. If you are determined to learn, so no one can stop you. A very warm afternoon to the judges and panelists present here. I welcome you all to the virtual national conference organized by SarkariSchool.in and WeCitizens Foundation in collaboration with Economics Club of Fergusson College. It's my honor to welcome all eminent speakers and panelist members from across the country from different walks of life. We have gathered to share their knowledge and vast experience to us. The theme of our conference is School, Sustainability and Education, a roadmap to Sustainable Development Goal 2030. This the title of our panel is School as a Tool Providing Education to Empower the Poor.
We will now proceed with the session. Our guest speakers will first share their insightful views on the topic. This will be followed by a discussion round where the attendees can put forth their questions for our panelists. Before we start, I would like to humbly request our guest speakers to kindly keep their addresses no longer than 5 to 6 minutes, as we will also have a discussion round afterwards. And we have to conclude the session in an hour. Thank you. Monica?
Monika Sharma, your address?
Okay, let me take this opportunity to invite our first guest speaker, Miss Monika Sharma. I believe that experience makes us wise, and our first speaker is the one who is a master of social work. She has experience of 8 years in different projects like project management, project policy, education, CSR projects, skill development, and implementation of skill entrepreneurship projects. After gaining experience of over 8 years in the execution, monitoring, and implementation of government projects, currently she is working on the Ministry of Education's RUSA project. She has also contributed as a project executive for the Digital Empowerment Foundation and has experience in community mobilization education sector with the British Council. We request you to kindly grace this session with your encouraging words.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Monika, as shared by Srishti. So currently, I'm working in RUSA, Rashtriya Uchchata Shiksha Abhiyan project, in Ministry of Education program. So we're providing the strategic funding to colleges, higher education department to enhance their higher educations. So in this scenario, this scheme is a holistic approach to enhance the higher educations for the tier 2, tier 3 cities. It's like Delhi is mostly a good higher education providing city, but rest of other city, so we are providing the good research innovations, IGCs, and other types of component providing the funding to colleges. So I'm directly coordinate with higher education department of central government and state government also. So during this program, I would like to enhance that in our education system, like NEP, we are providing the NEP access equality and good quality education to school education also. So during this good quality education programs, we have to enhance the digital education program as well also. So during this program, I would like to discussions about the digital education, digital literacy, the ground level and grassroots level also. Thank you so much for inviting me for this sessions. And I would like that second panel discussions we can start then.
Okay. Thank you, Monika ji. Research is
Yeah.
seeing what everybody else has seen and thinking, but what nobody else has thought. Our next speaker is Miss Pallavi Khanna. She is presently a research scholar at the Department of Economics, Jamia Millia Islamia University, New Delhi. Her research interests include education economics, development economics, financing of education, etc. Ms. Pallavi passed her UGC NET in January 2019. She has participated in various national and international conferences and published papers in well reputed peer reviewed journals. Microeconomics, macroeconomics, international finance, research methodology, marketing research, etc., are some of the areas of her teaching interests. Apart from this, Ms. Pallavi has been awarded with the ICSSR Centrally Administered Full Term Doctoral Fellowship by the Ministry of Education, Government of India. Pallavi ji, kindly enlighten us with your thoughts.
Thank you so much, Sisti, for an elaborative introduction. Good afternoon to one and all present here. Before discussing about the impact of education, its challenges, and the mitigation measures devised by the policymakers to overcome them, I would like to congratulate Sarkari School under the WeCitizen Foundation, Economics Club of Fergusson College for the one-day national conference on schools, sustainability, and education, a roadmap to the Sustainable Development Goal 2030. I would also like to thank Mr. Abhishek Ranjan, Innovation Officer at Ministry of Education, for giving me the opportunity to be the part of this conference. As you all know, that education to the most represents the idea of going to just school and learning about different subjects. However, it is argued that the meaning of education is just beyond going to the school, as the theme of this conference recognizes that the education as the key enabler for the broad realization of sustainable development goal, it is very important for us to determine that how education can play an effective role in achieving this. Education to most of us represent is one of to us represents as just going to the school, nothing beyond this that. But education is one of the most important indicators of development. In addition to the direct contribution of education to the economic growth and development, it is discussed by the human capital theory that it produces a number of benefits, such as reduction in the inequalities, technological advancement, improvement in income distribution, reduction in the crime rate, better life expectancy, strengthening of democracy, ensuring the civil liberty, etc. But for a longer period of time, issues related to access, inclusion, equality, and quality in education has been the primary concern of the policymaker. This has been recognized by the government of India time and again in the several policy documents discussed in a detailed manner about the lack of inclusive and equitable quality education and how this gap has to be actually filled. To get to this problem, the government of India has taken various measures. One of them could be starting from the very back, that the pre-independence area. If you go back to that, the government has launched National Education Policy 68. That is the famous Kothari Commission. After that, the government has launched National Education Policy 1986, its revised version 1992, Sir Shiksha Abhiyan to universalize the elementary education, Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan, teacher education, and now the integrated scheme for the education known as Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan. The recently launched National Education Policy 2020, which has replaced the 34 years policy on the education, has numerous takeaway for the stakeholders. The most important, I would highlight some of them. The most important one of them would be 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 system in the school education system that incorporates the early childhood care, ensuring the foundational literacy and numeracy, universal access at all the level of the education, ensuring adequate resourcing. And apart from this, a number of initiatives have been proposed for the higher education. No doubt that these reforms have the enormous scope to revitalize the economy, but the implementation of these is still a challenge before the government. From the policy option, I would recommend, as you'll go back since the days of the famous Kothari Commission, the expenditure target of 6% of the GDP has been frequently flagged in several policy documents. And however, for the last several decades, there has been a significant shortfall with regard to this. If you look at the benchmark, so we can get into many different aspects related to the challenges and the mitigation measures which has been devised by the policy measures. But let me just stop here. I guess I have given you some idea regarding the basic challenges and the tools which have been proposed by the government to achieve the sustainable development goal, for which targets relating to the ensure inclusive, equitable and quality education in our country. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Pallavi ji, for such an
Srishti, your
encouraging
voice is
speech.
not audible to us.
Okay. Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, audible. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for your encouraging words. We have learned a lot from you, ranging from how education is the primary tool for development, what you told us all about NEP as well, ranging from economic aspects as well. So, thank you so much. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Pooja Jain. Public speaking is a skill you get great at just like anything else with practice. Our next speaker, Dr. Pooja Jain, is a passionate educator, enthusiastic public speaker, and English literature lover. Dr. Pooja Jain is currently the head of the English department at the Assam Valley School, Assam. She is also the Round Square representative in charge of public speaking activities and lower school dramatics. Having attained a bachelor's in degree in science, she followed her heart into a master's in English literature and doctorate in English literature. Currently, Dr. Jain is pursuing professional doctorate in education. Dr. Jan, I request you to kindly enlighten us with your experiences and encourage all of us with your motivating words.
Thank you so much, Srishti. Just give me a thumbs up if I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Great. So I will take over from what Pallavi just spoke, and she talked a lot about equitable education, inclusive education. And since I call myself a passionate educator, I also strongly believe in an inclusive mode of imparting education, where there is education provided for all, to all, and education is meant to everybody. Although I wanted to say this line at the end, but let me begin with this and then I will come to a full circle ending with the same thing. Over the years, I have learned to believe as a teacher and educator that no child should be left behind. And when I say no child should be left behind, as an educator, as a teacher, as a facilitator, I feel that education should not see barriers of geographical boundaries, class, creed, caste, religion, gender, or any age for that matter. So today, when we talk about school being a tool, which provides education to empower the poor. The word poor strikes very hard though, and we know that India, being a country of mixed races, mixed classes, castes, creeds, colors, and religion, there is no inevitability, or it is rather inevitable to rule out the poor, the underprivileged. So let me highlight a few things, the challenges, of course, that the poor communities of the society they face, and what government schools are doing. Definitely the government of India, like Pallavi elaborated so well, how the government of India is creating opportunities in enhancing and empowering the poor societies and communities of the country. But I would quote Nelson Mandela here when he said that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And when we say that education is the most powerful weapon, trust me, as an educator today, I know that education over the years has stopped to mean only about results, assessments, grades, marks, and scores. Education has come a long way, evolved a long way to understand that it is also instilling, inculcating, enhancing traits, human qualities, and skills in today's time. We talk about 21st century. And why should the poor people, the underprivileged, just because they're economically backward or socially backward or they're looked down upon, be the underdogs and be deprived of those privileges? Why should they not be given the same opportunities just because they can't afford what the other people can? So education should come down to merit, and it should come down to not classicism, not races, not geographical boundaries or castes and creeds. Every child across the globe should be deserving of attaining a class level education. When we talk about globalization, when we talk about the world becoming a smaller place, we talk about technological advancements, we talk about modern times, school serves as a strong tool, a strong weapon to provide education and to empower the poor. Why do we see education as a strong tool or weapon? So just very quick, a few pointers. Education definitely reduces poverty. It increases individual earnings and incomes. Economic inequalities are ruled out. Social justices are ruled out. Economic growth and development. It saves the planet. It opens up and widens up the horizon. It creates opportunities, resources, and facilitates every individual, even the poor children, who have the right to education. However, when we talk of schools, schools is the key factor in eliminating gender inequality, reducing poverty, creating a sustainable planet, preventing the needless deaths and illnesses, and fostering peace, because school is the place where we all come together. We wear the same uniform, we empower each other, we encourage each other, we foster fraternity, we foster brotherhood, we foster sisterhood, and we create equal opportunities. So when we talk about school as a tool providing education to empower the two of the poor, there is no better place than a school to do the needful. What is quality education? A quality education is something that focuses on the holistic development of a child, social, emotional, mental, physical, and cognitive development, thereby instilling human traits and skills in today's century and world. It prepares the child not only for life, not just for testing, but for entire life. And school is the best place where a child is prepared as a global citizen, is nurtured, and is prepared for life. Finding a place like school is not an easy task, but it is not an undoable or impossible task either. Very quickly, I'll highlight on a few points how quality education can be provided to the poor by improving access to education, counseling students and parents. Innovations in classroom teaching techniques and learning process can aid the condition of education in India. By strengthening the base level, that is the primary level. Unfortunately, across globe that I have observed, and especially in India, our primary levels are the ones that are most ignored and neglected. Very sadly, any which ways education sector is a very slow process, and that is why very few people, especially men, if you look at, they don't want to go into the education sector because the likelihood is low. And primary sector, to say so, unfortunately, is even the lowest. So where we must strengthen our base and where we must pay the teachers the most is not at the university levels or the higher levels, but at the primary levels. Because those small little children, if they gain interest in education, if they gain interest in learning process, they will turn out to be the best inquisitive learners across. However, education, also by teaching classicism, environmental pollution, self-awareness, appreciation of diversity, all of this comes under quality education and can only be taught at school level. Relevant and meaningful education that is provided to students for lifelong learning, something that students can relate to, something that they can connect with, connections with life, connections with self, connections with the world around. So when you go beyond text and beyond context and start making connections, that is why quality education comes into picture. By continually reaching out to parents, even if they're unresponsive, but at least we make an effort. We know at the poor levels of society where children are only taught to earn their livelihood and their bread and butter, education most of the times, and especially for girls, is ruled out. So when we constantly counsel parents, guide them, mentor them, and teach them the value of education, there is no way that even the poor can be empowered. By challenging ourselves, by challenging our colleagues, by not stigmatizing the poor children and poor parents, by constantly encouraging them and inspiring them, thereby providing equitable conditions in schools and classrooms, by providing inclusive education and catering to differently abled children, because everybody has a right to education, by ruling out economic inequality and social injustice, by creating global awareness and exposure, by creating opportunities for every child across ages, classes, and creed and boundaries, and by bringing in an educational evolution through pedagogy and teaching methodology. And if we follow all of this, there is no way that we can leave behind any child. And therefore, I repeat, no child should be left behind. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pooja, for telling us how school is the building block to fight against all the injustices ranging from casteism, racism, gendered injustices, environmental as well. So, thank you so much. Next. Success in life is not for those who run fast, but for those who keep running and are always on the move. Next, we have with us a very young guest speaker. She is just 19-year-old. She is a climate and gender justice activist and a student from Delhi. Raseel Arora. She has been working on education since the age of 13, first by teaching young girls English at a local charity school for a year, and then by representing India in a UNICEF council at just the age of 14, as one of the 8 youth worldwide at the UN headquarters to work on girls' education access. She has been leading the youth community at ClimateScience.org, which engages thousands of youth across 150 plus countries to understand climate change through accessible, reliable, and solution focused education. Nationally, she works on gender focused event programming for young girls across India as a regional leader at Girl Up India, which is an initiative of UN Foundation. Raseel, we are so excited to have you with us, and you are actually a true inspiration for youngsters. Please continue.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here, and thank you so much to all of the speakers who preceded me. I'm Raseel. I am 19 from Delhi. While I'm really excited to talk about education, I'm equally excited to talk about the issues that are on the periphery of education. So today, and I'm really glad that this conference talks not only about education, but sustainability and access. So I'm excited today to talk about all those three stages. That is, getting students to be in school and to be enrolled in school, how we get them to stay in school, and then lastly, something that I hope the conversation for increases in the future is thinking critically about what that schooling actually entails. The institution of education is something that is one of the most historic ones, going back to even more informal styles of learning. And while the institution of of education is historic and something that precedes all of us, something that is really exciting to see in the recent past, and sort of where my work has been involved in, is understanding how we can innovate within the scope of education. How the way we look at education today is what is the percentage of, or what is the literacy rate, or the enrollment rate. And I hope, and my field of work really hopes to delve into beyond just those statistics, not just looking at how many people are enrolled, but what are they actively learning. So, when I spoke about the issues on the periphery, my work has largely been focused on gender justice as well as climate justice. So, while education is a tool, and like ma'am said earlier, is a tool that unlocks people, unlocks potential, is extremely helpful for upward mobility, to get folks out of poverty, of class and caste shackles. It also inadvertently helps a lot of other issues. More girls' education is the third best solution for climate change. More education in general is a leading solution for gender equality. Better social emotional learning, I'm sure, will help bind together our population that every now and then is struck with being caught up in our differences. More inclusive learning, that is enabling not only people to learn in more traditional ways, but non-traditional ways for folks that are either differently abled, or just have different learning styles. So, going into a little bit on my work in climate education, a lot of us are aware that climate change is an issue. Whether it's heat waves in Delhi, or beyond. We all are aware that climate change is a problem, as we are aware that, say, gender equality is, and so forth. But most people aren't really educated on what these problems entail and sort of the underlying concerns. So, my work is in climate education, sort of the in between phase between climate awareness and climate action. So while I'm here today, really excited to understand where we all can innovate together in the field of education, how we can make education not only inclusive but constantly innovative, to look into not just as they say, reading, writing, and arithmetic, but much further than that. That is, how can we include climate education, sexuality and sex education, and much beyond, which are things that enable populations to not only be more aware of say course material, or of reading, or of books, but more aware of their surroundings and how they can better help it. I know personally, for me, learning more about climate change on a scientific and educational level, or learning about gender equality with UNICEF on a research based level, has made me impassioned to work on these fields for my life. And I'm sure that, as we have more and more young people genuinely and actively engaged in understanding what causes these problems, it will not only motivate people to be more educated and to reinvigorate an interest in education, but on the larger scale, promote a lot of social change. And lastly, as I said earlier, all of these issues are so closely linked. So while we talk about education, I hope that we are also mindful, and I'm so glad this has already been brought up. We are also mindful of the way that education can be not only a tool for upward mobility, but also a tool to solve climate change, a tool to solve gender equality, and really a tool to get young people actively involved in issues that are of rising importance. So with that, I will throw it back to you. Thank you so much for the stage, and I'm really excited for the questions that follow this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raseel, for your inspirational words. To you, we have actually learned how education is not just about gaining literacy. It can be weaponized into fighting injustices related to gender inequality or climate changes as well. So thank you so much. Last but not the least, we have our speaker, Avleen Kaur ma'am. Young people have truly the potential to change the world. Our next speaker, Miss Avleen Kaur, is a recent graduate from Lady Shri Ram College in BCom Honors. She has also served as the president of her department during her college. She's working with different foundations like Myra, Ek Pehel, and Parent Town for the last 2 years, which shows her dedication to serving people. Presently, she is working at InterviewBit Technologies Private Limited as a special projects associate. Formerly, she also worked at Ellie Consulting as a senior associate. We are so honored to have you with us today, ma'am. We request you to kindly grace this session with your motivating words.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope I'm audible. It's raining in the background, so might be a little difficult to hear me. Am I audible? Please raise a thumbs up if yes. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, the organizers, for having me today. I think everyone has touched upon education and how its utility extends beyond just literacy, numeracy, and how it's a power in our society. It's a force of nature which brings in upward mobility and in its positive ripple effects across different domains. I'll quickly just touch upon education in a few seconds, and then I would like to move to school as the tool, which is the primary topic today, and share my 2 cents on how I envision a Sarkari school and a school in today's world. So I believe, and that's my personal belief, that education is a very strong equalizer in the society because it is trying to neutralize the lottery of birth because it is trying to disempower the inequalities of social currency. It also means that it's preserving the uniqueness of different communities. So education is that force of nature which is supposed to become the home of empowerment and equality for especially a disadvantaged section. And with the same spirit, what I would like to touch upon is today's Sarkari schools or any schools for that matter have to embody the spirit of the environment and equality. And so, a couple of things which, at least for me, would be the ideal traits of the Sarkari school would be exactly the essence of Sarkar, which is government, which is for the people, by the people, of the people. So it has to be for the students, of the students, and by the people. So what I mean by that is when I say for the students, essentially what we are teaching or what we are preaching in schools will be truly relevant to the progress of students, which means building strength within their context and leading to prosperity without uprooting the identity. Now, when I say that, I essentially mean that when we're teaching a poor child in a rural part of the country, the curriculum, the pedagogy, the kind of content we are delivering has to be contextualized to the identity, to the community, so that the child is truly progressing rather than trying to fit in. So basically, that by that I mean that building robust skill sets that can withstand the dynamism which is happening in the world these days, keeping up with things like internet boom, digital systems, modern infrastructure, and so on and so forth. So that will truly mean that it is for the students and not the system. The second is it has to be of the students also, which means there has to be, a more inclusive, student-friendly environment, which I think everyone has touched upon a little bit, which is no discrimination based on caste, creed, gender, even mental ability, things like accessibility and affordability. It has to translate into inclusivity. Only then can we say that our schools are actually of the students. And the last is by the student. So when I say by the student, it means that we have to try to come out of our traditional system where we are teaching things like obedience to authorities in our schools. And we need to try to bring out the joy of participation, the intellectual honesty, the purpose alignment by the students themselves, where a student will come up and say, yes, I feel strongly towards the vision of my school. And this is how I want to contribute to that vision, rather than saying, okay, I know how to agree to my teachers, and I'll be a good obedient student. So I think that will truly be by the student and participation from our student body, because that has been a very important concept even the education systems that have progressed much ahead of India. So those are just some of my 2 cents regarding what will be an ideal school in today's time. And some of the very interesting, innovative strategies which I wanted to talk about today, which I think a lot of governments in India have done, is, for example, the Delhi government school model. It has been widely talked about, but some things that I love about that model is the focus on social emotional learning, the happiness curriculum, or the EMC, the Entrepreneurship Mindset curriculum. Now, for example, let's go back 25, 30 years. These things were not even heard of. Nobody in the schools, nobody taught my mother about happiness curriculum. Nobody taught my mother about, what is entrepreneurship. How can she build a business in her, in whatever she likes. So I think these soft skills, these life skills, the attention to detail by our governments is truly something we should applaud. And these innovative strategies, the way it is taught. I mean, I have personally been to a couple of schools in Delhi, government schools in Delhi, which have set up things like AI, robotics labs, adult tinkering labs. So it pushes the students to think out of the box. Essentially, this helps a rickshaw wala's son to believe that I don't have to be a rickshaw wala. So I think that in itself is very empowering and changing and bringing people out of the traditional mindset. Another thing which I wanted to sort of touch upon today was in itself the government um, thinking and setting aside resources for the state, which is, for example, Haryana's food revamp model, where there is an MOU to revamp almost 14,000 schools in the state. So we are not just, exciting the children by saying, hey, you should come in for midday meals. No, we're trying to say that, hey, this is the kind of infrastructure that you will get in school. This is the kind of return on the investment that you're putting in now that you'll get. You'll get so and so employment. You will be able to generate the kind of income that will be intergenerational effects. So maybe, 100 years down the line, your generations will benefit if today you actually come to the school. So I think those are some kind of some examples of strategies which I really appreciate by our government today. So especially for poor and economically disadvantaged sections, this means that the schools are an outlet to the breakthrough, to cut loose from their vicious cycle of poverty and depravity. It allows the next generations to build a very strong self identity to make decisions that are, that don't pose them as downtrodden in the society, but as equal stakeholders in economic transformation. So I think, I think that has really boosted me. And thank you so much for setting such a beautiful agenda today. So I think that would be my 2 cents, and happy to take more questions.
Thank you so much, Ms. Avleen, for your inspiring words. So now our speakers have shared their wonderful thoughts on the topic, but we would like to hear more from them. So now we reach the discussion round. So my first question is for you, Miss Monica. After the spread of
Yes,
coronavirus, everything turned online. All the
yes,
classes
ma'am.
were conducted using online platforms. Do you believe that this has worsened the quality of education of students, or did it act as a reason to bridge the digital gap?
So I would like to share that during the COVID, I'm also implementing the digital education in Delhi ITIs, Delhi colleges as well. So in this impact, the digital gap is also working to enhance the capacity of students, the underprivileged students as well as the village and cover to the towns, universities and state level also. So during the digital education and the COVID pandemic, we analyze that the quality of education is somehow enhanced students, but this is a very difficult scenario for students to adopt new technology. It's like they are studying in the classroom, now they are studying the digital way, on the digital platforms, digital assignments, digital assessments also. So in some scenario of this, I would like that digital education enhance students confidence to come on the digital platform, working on the digital content as well. And during the COVID pandemic also, with the NEP, all public policy, we are working on that. So the digital education is very important role for the present scenario and the future scenario as well. So I suggested that digital education is very much important students for present scenario as well as the future prospect of India. As like NEP policy, we are enhanced students 2020 2040 also. So for my scenario, digital education is very important part, and we are covered as well. Is like our government working a very well in the education system also. Delhi governments, state governments also working very well. So the digital education is very much important part for today, and we are working on the push some platform also. As in NEP, we are working on the Prakash platform. Prakash platform is providing the assignments, assessments to the MCA students, and the Prakash platform also providing the assessment to the BTech IT students also. So same scenario, some good organizations, Post Alliance and Samagra Shiksha is very well working the digital education in HP, Haryana, Himachal Pradesh, MP also. So during the COVID pandemic, we learned how to adopt digital education. And for my prospect, this is very good step taken by government of India for the enhancing the digital educations. So I'm very much say that digital education is a very much a important part of Delhi government, state government, and this is the very much good step taken by our country. Uh,
Thank you.
apart
This
of
was
that,
kind.
yeah, apart of that, I would also suggested that the digital educations, the app educations is also reach to unreached concept. So in the village level, we have to reach, and we are working on that. So this is the main scenario: reach to unreach. So I just share some kind of digital education platform with you guys. You can share with students, and all the digital education due to the pandemic, we learn also the awareness is very good important roles to play of education systems. So please share this kind of platform to students, to the teachers, to the peer learnings and the mentors also, so that we can reach students and give them awareness that the digital educations all providing in India, all states we are covering. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Miss Monica. Thank you so much for answering our question, and we'll try to share whatever you have shared with us to as many as people as possible for sure.
Yeah.
So now my next question is to you, Miss Pallavi Khanna. Government's Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan has worked to incorporate the poor children into the schools of India. But don't you think the focus of government funding should not only be towards incorporating the children into schools or to achieve literacy only, but the focus should also be towards achieving the skill enhancement of the children? How do you think skill development can help towards eradicating poverty?
Thank you so much for the question, Srishti. As we all know, that Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan is the Government of India flagship program for the achievement of universalization of elementary education. Toward this direction, India aims to achieve the following four objective and milestone within the clear time frame: universalizing the access, bridging the gender and the social gap in education, enhancing the learning levels of children. The 7 and 8 years of education, basic schooling, basically imparting the fundamental numeracy and literacy, is increasingly becoming inadequate these days. people or students now require a compulsory education that goes beyond the basic numeracy, and that will basically secondary education will help them acquire the rudimentary skill to critically think and learn. An obvious benefit of skill development is that a skilled person is more employable than an unskilled individual. A person with a marketable skill has more opportunities. They are more likely to find the employment. So I feel that unemployment is one of the factor if we can see the long term poverty eradication. So that's all from my side. I feel if they people have more employment skills, or they acquire more enhancement skill, that will be a sign toward the poverty eradication.
Thank you so much, Miss Pallavi. My next question is to Dr. Pooja Jain. As you are currently the head of the English department at the Assam Valley School, Assam, so I would like to ask you, do you think that English as a language is necessary for the empowerment of students and for the development of their personalities? Or language can be any language, doesn't have to do with only English.
Uh, Thank you for that very relevant and frequently asked question, Srishti, because I'm also an English teacher, and the onus lies on us so much, especially in our country where English is not our first language, it's a borrowed language. We know we owe it to the 200 plus years of colonialism in India, right? However, when it comes to English, language definitely is a medium of expression. There is absolutely no doubt about it, be it any language. Why language has always been or since ever been developed is so that we can communicate, we can express. But when we talk about English in today's scenario, uh, I mean, this has got nothing to do with nationality or any other language, to say so with no offense. But why English is important in empowering people is because we all know, and it's an undeniable fact, that English today is a global language, worldwide accepted. So when we talk about, I mean, look at your brain drain. The most number, I mean, the maximum number of Indians, they do not work in India. The best of Indians and the best of brains are working abroad. So when we talk about globalization, we talk about the world coming and shrinking closer. We talk about employability. We talk about opportunities, career opportunities. We know our own students, how they crave to go abroad and study for higher education. So that is where English as a language comes into prospect and comes into effect and use. So why I feel as an English teacher and otherwise also that English is an important language, considering it's 21st century, considering that it's a global arena, and so that we can create opportunities, educational opportunities and employability opportunities, and employment opportunities or career opportunities. English is an important language to empower students. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pooja. My next question is to you, Miss Avleen Kaur. We come across a lot of reports which indicate rote learning practices in Indian schools. They can seriously hamper the capabilities of the children. How do you think the curriculum of the Indian school education system can be made inclusive of skill development and cognitive development of children, not the rote learning one?
Thanks for the question. I think it is extremely relevant in today's context more than ever. And as I also touched upon in my piece, that I think making the curriculum or making the content inclusive is very important. And to sort of step away from rote learning and making it more relevant in terms of the skills, we need to contextualize whatever we are teaching. So, for instance, if we are talking about a school in a rural area or in a tribal area, indigenous population, do you think that the primary level of education is and whatever we're teaching, the content should be the same, or as opposed to anybody in Delhi, Bangalore, Bombay? Ideally, my answer would be no, because the kind of livelihoods that they had, the kind of jobs that their parents, that their ancestors, that probably they would be doing in future, those would require different context, different content, different kind of upskilling. So, for example, if I want to sort of touch how much did any of us learn in our schools about farming? Versus a farmer would want his child to know the basics of science of farming, and that is absent from the context of schools where farmers children go to. So I think to make it relevant, to make it as a direct input towards skill development, we need to first of all contextualize to the kind of community the children are a part of, to the kind of outcomes that would be available to them once they graduate out of school. So contextualization is one, and apart from that, I think second more relevant thing is getting rid of the traditional systems like, for example, grades, scoring, marks, exams. I mean, not completely, but in the sense that that gives children some leeway, some kind of freedom to experiment, which gives them the authority to have inner reflection and enough flexibility to move in and out of things that they like and don't like. So I think those two things will actually help move towards a more skill relevant and cognitively relevant curriculum rather than just rote learning.
Thank you, Miss Avleen. So my next question is to you, Miss Raseel. As you already represented India at the UNICEF and participated in many such events in respect to providing education, but there are few who still lack access to the quality of education and aren't even aware of the pre existing policies. So, how would you reach those people with your own initiatives?
Thank you. That's a great question. Well, I would say first off, to do with awareness of policies. I think that sort of while social background does play a part, I feel that policies are largely inaccessible to the general public in that most people, especially the youth population, doesn't sit down and read those policies unless it's right up their alley with research. It's mainly folks directly involved with drafting the policies that actually intently read it, or if you're generally curious. So I feel first off, with accessibility of actually understanding what these policies entail, we require widespread, universalized understanding of what all these government policies actually include. For example, and everything from Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao to Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, all of these policies, right? There's obviously results in the grassroots. There would, of course, also be hurdles or challenges, but we won't really be able to get to the bottom of it, especially largely as a population, or even all of us here that are interested in education and innovation in education, unless all these policies are made to be more democratized to the general public. I feel this spans not only education, but really policies at large. If someone is from an economically backward section and they may directly benefit from a certain policy, first off, if they aren't in the context to understand, to read to begin with, we can't expect these kinds of policies to reach the grassroots. So I think education and awareness of policies goes hand in hand. They help each other. Moreover, largely to do with, you mentioned, say, my initiatives, I would say, first off, language accessibility is a big factor. So I work on climate change based education with ClimateScience. We work to translate all of our content into local and regional languages as well. And beyond just mere translating, I think it's really about having people in communities in different areas that are able to disseminate this information, whether it's climate change or whether it's education policies in the grassroots, that is actually explain what these policies may, or how these policies may help them. So I think sort of across the board, say I work on making climate change easy to understand, but sort of a larger and really important necessity is making policies and generally these practices that are supposed to enable or help with upward mobility of the masses, make them easy to understand. Everything from awareness sessions and beyond. I think that would greatly help with understanding policies on a larger scale, how people can actually, even if it's something as simple as classes and that this does exist here in their classes on political awareness, even like the civics part of the history and civics, I know in 10th grade, um, covers a bit of constitution and rights, and And at the college level, there are a couple of skill enhancement courses. I know I'm taking one right now called Your Laws and Your Rights, which I think definitely help with making policies easy to understand, especially if they are to help us. So yeah.
Thank you, Raseel. You answered greatly. We still have some more time left, so Miss Pallavi, let's hear something more from you. You are a research scholar, and education is one of the areas of your interest. Would you like to share your experiences in some of your research findings that you think are the crucial revelations to the Indian education system? Ma'am, I request you to kindly unmute yourselves. Yes.
Uh, Thank you, Shishti, for the question. My thesis basically revolves around analyzing the financing trends of secondary education in India with the focus on Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan. Basically, Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan is one of the largest and the key flagship program implemented by the government of India for the universalization of secondary education. My contribution to the body of the knowledge in the form of the research paper or current thesis, which will be soon published, highlights that even after these 70 years of more than 70 years of independence, the education sector faces challenges pertaining to basic issues like access, retention, quality. Despite that, the Indian government recognition of education as an investment in allocation of resources to the education in general and in the particular in secondary education is far from the satisfactory. The government is still not able to meet the target of 6%, which has been. If you look at the current National Education Policy 2020, which highlights that the current level of education on out of the GDP is 4.43% in 2070, has still not reached. So the government is unable to provide the satisfactory resources in order to meet to these challenges. So my findings would be that the government should must target the proper allocation of resources, keeping in view the specific targets of any state of the India or at the pan India the level to address to these issues at the earliest. Thank you so much, Shristi, for the question.
Thank you so much. My next question is to you, Dr. Pooja. As you are very much around and among students, you would know that there are many of the students who actually leave their studies in between. So, if someone wants to restart their studies, how do you think they should be able to cope up with the loss and again restart their studies?
That's quite a relevant question, Srishti, actually, because we all go through life situations and challenges, and there is no certainty to life. Anybody can
Yes.
go through that situation in life, right? The first thing that I would suggest to anybody across that whenever life throws a challenge at you, take it, accept it, and use it. Turn that threat into an opportunity. That is how we do a SWOT analysis, right? When we turn our threats into opportunities. So, if ever such a situation arises for whatever reason, the first thing is acceptance and realization that this has happened, because most of the times we are in an emotional state of denial, that why me, how can it happen to me. So it could be anything, any reason. I know if I look back at my own childhood, my school days, I have seen some of my friends. I remember when I was appearing for the first board examinations, I got to know of a distant friend who could not appear for her exams because her mother passed away during those exams. And for a lot of time, she was in that state of denial. Whereas a few years later, there was another such incident with another friend who immediately accepted it and went on with life and appeared for exams. So, mental strength, resilience, and tenacity are the key words to accepting any situation in life. And the pandemic, has been a huge example for all of us. I know for myself, after I did my PhD, I thought, okay, this is the end. Now let me earn and let me be a survivor, bread earner, let me live my life. But it is because of the pandemic, when the pandemic struck the world and we knew nothing and we didn't know what to do. And today we're sitting, I'm appearing for these conferences and a guest speaker online and this and that. It is because we turned that threat into an opportunity. We regained our consciousness. We became resilient and we fought back. And that is where one of the speakers talked about digital education that actually served as building a gap. So what I would suggest, and again, if I say, talk about my example, I did one of the PhDs, my doctorate in English literature about 10 years ago. And then during the pandemic, I pursued a lot of certification and online courses and this and that, and opened up to an entire world, digital world. And I wouldn't say explored technology, I actually exploited technology in those 2 years. And that is how I'm sitting here today. And then after a lot of courage, I thought, okay, let me give another try. Let me take up another doctoral degree in education, because now education has become my passion. So when you want to do something, there is no stopping to it. It is all over here. What the mind is, what you think is what you become. So the only suggestion is go for it. Time is just time, it gives you strength. It should be used to heal you and give you strength and restart and regain power. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pooja. So I would like to hear from you, Ms. Raseel. So it's not a hidden fact that gender factor does play a critical role in the educational accessibility as well as the economic status of the people. How far do you think is the statement women are the poorest of the poor justified?
Wow. All said and done. First off, this is an all-female panel, so I'm sure that stings a little bit for all of us. But I think, well, first of all, I definitely agree that gender and education are intrinsically linked, as is, we're able to make the situation of gender equality better with more education. And certainly, we can't say that the state of education is very good without having girls enrolled and completing, not only the very basic, but also further education. I was excited to hear about ma'am talking about pursuing several, doctorate degrees. I mean, that's really where we want a lot of our girls to be headed. So I think to do with sort of your statement, or to tackle it more directly, of course, education plays a very, very important role in bringing people out of poverty, and largely because of the frankly sad state of girls' education. Of course, that is very deeply linked. I think these issues are very intersectional in that, I don't think as a general statement, I'd agree as much as looking at it both from analyzing gender in the places which are most struck by poverty, wherein definitely I think that statement would definitely hold. That being said, sort of zooming out and looking on a larger scale, there are a lot of women out there that, of course, have access to opportunity for a variety of different reasons and privilege and so forth, that do have access to education and access to further and secondary and education beyond. I think bridging the gap has a lot to do with the people that have access to education actively trying to make a difference to the people that don't. I think it's definitely a myth that making education accessible is restricted to policy and policy makers. I think that generally, civic engagement in making education more accessible plays a very, very large part. Even looking at the way that education links to climate change. I read a few articles about how due to climate change, the crop outcome was less, and thus the girls didn't have any rotis. They were only for the father of the house, in a certain village. Then you look at it even from accessibility to water. Because of climate change becoming less and less, and that also being an issue because it's usually women that are tasked to fetch the water, and the list goes on. So I think that while the statement unfortunately holds true in a lot of contexts, it is important for us to try, and for us to acknowledge that policies at the end of the day is what is going to shift the needle. It is going to be the difference between a not so good literacy rate and a very good one, or a not so good enrollment rate and a very good one. But on the side and in the background, and I think this is a testament to all of the work that the folks on this panel are doing, is the power of civic engagement, the power of researching and investing in education, whether that's as an educator, as a researcher, just simply as someone that is empathetic to our surroundings. Anything as simple as even helping folks around us with stationery, with buying books, and things like that, which may not, it doesn't even have to be connected to a policy. It can even just root in civic awareness and civic empathy. So while I say yes, that statement in a sense is true, I think it does also, and it should, um, empower everyone here and watching and beyond, to try and make it less true. And so yeah, with that, I hope a sense of honest and reluctant optimism.
Okay, thank you,
So,
Raseel. I really hope that the
Srishti,
day comes when that statement is totally unjustified.
Srishti, can I
So,
just add on? Can I just add on to what Raseel said, if you don't mind?
yes, ma'am, sure, please.
Just a very short thing. This reminds me of one of the events I had participated in, which talked about hugely that how India is a country of paradoxes. You see that on one hand we worship women in the name of goddess Durga and Saraswati, and on the other hand we burn the same woman in the name of dowry and female feticide and infanticide. So, what I have learned over the course of years, when my children come and wish me Happy Women's Day, I don't say thank you to them because I am already an empowered, educated woman who can think for herself. But how many of us are like that? Because when we talk about India as a country, we cannot rule out the cultural heritage of India, the patriarchal mindset of India. It doesn't lie only in cities. We have to get to the grassroots levels. We have to go to the villages, the nooks and crannies, the kind of work that is required to do, having a panel discussion, as much as it sounds fascinating, but we should not stop it over here. This has to reach out, this has to become the voice of the country, this has to become the voice of every citizen, that education cannot be gender biased. So I just, I was so tempted to just comment on what Raseel was saying and just to add on further to this, that and reiterating that no child should be left behind. Every girl is a child, every boy is a child. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pooja, for saying that. So, we would like to hear more from all of you, but due to time constraints, we have to conclude the session. So, thank you so much for sharing your observations with us today, and congratulations to all of you. Before we conclude the session, I would request our chief guests to kindly share their feedback on the session. Now, I hand it over to Muskan.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Muskan, and it gives me an immense pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks to all the dignitaries and renowned speakers present here who, despite their busy schedules, have found time to grace this event. Thank you, Ms. Avleen Kaur, Ms. Raseel Arora, Ms. Monika Sharma, Dr. Pooja Jain, and Ms. Pallavi Khanna for your words of encouragement. Last but not the least, I'm thanking our viewers, organizing team members, anchors, and volunteers for their contribution in this event. All of you worked so hard for this conference. I will announce this session is over and the another session, which is engaging youth potential for enhancing SDGs, is currently going on. So I would like to join the session. Once again, I thank to all the speakers for motivating and inspiring us. But not the least, I would like to thank and congratulate our host for the successful completion of the panel School as a Tool Providing Education to Empower the Poor. Thank
Thank
you
you.
and wishing you a great day ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.